We, humbled and loyal few, Borderlands, Gearbox fans, well, we have problems. The big YouTube streamers, etc., the content creators for Borderlands, they aren't getting that many hits on their Wonderlands videos. The fact is, Chaos Chambers are Oblivion Gate mixed with a demo version of Risk of Rain, and Gearbox appears to be doing a by-the-numbers support and peace, meaning Borderlands 4 is not our long-awaited Destiny killer. This goes bigger. Sure, Wonderlands has a big problem, but that means by extension, so does the entire Borderlands franchise. And while I hate to use the term franchise fatigue in terms of Borderlands, it's a term that one will hear more and more often going forward with the franchise, and I especially dislike the criticism it's just more Borderlands, as on some level, it's still a Borderlands game, no different than Skyrim and Oblivion are still Elder Scrolls games. Franchise fatigue bothers me because it had been 7 years plus since we had a Borderlands game. How could we be fatigued from a game that hasn't seen a title in nearly a decade? Yet, unfortunately, it still applies because by and large, Borderlands 3 is Borderlands 2, the Quality of Life Edition. There's no need to remaster Borderlands 2, as I've heard some arguing for, when it's effectively already been remastered, and the original still stands the test of time with its stylized graphics. I see more hits now on Borderlands 2 playthroughs than I see for either Wonderlands or Borderlands 3. So, this is the first and foremost problem that Wonderlands has. The formula has remained static and as a result has grown stale. It's 10 years old. Despite gradual refinements and plenty of working to optimize the experience, Gearbox sort of specializes in cutting out fat when it comes to gameplay, except for when it comes to exposition. Exposition, it still insists on presenting as 3 to 5 minute segments of unskippable sit and listen Torg's grandma style. Let's cut to the chase. If I say Wonderlands has a big problem, let's state that problem plainly. Endgame. Wonderlands doesn't have legs. Many of Wonderland's problems are endemic Borderlands problems. And people might sing Kumbaya with Destiny, but it is 100% a competitor. They occupy the same genre and in the same space as one another. Gearbox Destiny is winning. For all the love, hate, hot, cold relationship players have with Destiny, the analytics don't lie. It maintains player counts. It continues to grow, albeit slowly. And while I vehemently disagree with people that argue let it go of offline mode, it's the only way to advance, I wholeheartedly agree that it does have to advance. As a rural player, I know full well not everyone has the internet, and I still believe in ownership. How do we advance Gearbox's flagship IP without selling out its values? Because it has to advance. The world, games, they've continued to progress since 2012. It's a totally different world out there. It's a brave new world, and that means while we fans have enjoyed this honeymoon phase of Wonderlands, I know I have, the fact remains, Wonderlands has a big problem. The game does not have legs. And while that may seem like, well, Wonderlands is a one-off anyways, that is not just a Wonderlands problem. That is now a Borderlands problem. Let's discuss how Gearbox continues to advance their flagship IP. I've thought long and hard about this, and especially about Endgame in the largest sense. Endgame is defined by chess as the moment in the game when few pieces or plays remain. The definition persists in video games as action available into a long play. And my definition has come to be, in the digital media space, meaningful time sink. This definition is two parts: meaningful and time sink. I formed my definition based upon the excellent How to Read a Book by Mortimer J. Adler, who argues that one doesn't understand a concept fully unless they can summarize it in one sentence using their own words. So in this instance, let's dig into time sink. Borderlands has always had two endgame time sinks: leveling up alternate vault hunters and raid bosses, the Invincibles. Gearbox is not totally out of tune when it comes to endgame. It's not like they're either not aware or don't try, as Borderlands 2 saw by far the most advancements here and real effort put into creating a deeper experience, from set raid bosses, farming of Seraph crystals, UVHM, and later the OP levels. Some of this work and should have been kept, and for reasons unknown hasn't, such as dedicated loot boss farming. Of course, players love the Invincibles, and yes, they've arguably been included since Borderlands 3 and in Wonderlands, but their format remains controversial. Most puzzling is that dedicated loot drops haven't seen a total dedication to the mechanic since BL2. So let's go to the meaning. The meaningful yang to the yin of time sync in Borderlands is finding loot to optimize or creep builds. Badass rank. Badass rank is an okay system, and I've always, truth be told, really enjoyed it, but the bonuses make very little difference for the time required to invest, though it's largely a cosmetic difference. And while they've changed this with BL3 and to a degree with Myth rank, the format remains the same. Gear should 100% be the strength here when it comes to meaningful. But somehow Borderlands games have always reduced down to 3 pieces of gear with set prefixes, and they're almost always the multi-pellet varieties, and almost always something that gives you a DPS boost. How a game and a company that has as its crowning achievement an algorithm just designed and designated to create dynamic procedural loot has so much difficulty in creating a diversity of options and floor loot is mystifying to me. The guns since Borderlands 2, they drop in fixed archetypes with very little difference in their power use or value, and woefully little range so as to limit the effects of RNG, but also to kill the meaningful part quickly, as Gearbox games rapidly turn into quantity over quality, as all rarities are just ignored as lesser counterparts to their rare siblings. If we use my definition of endgame, Gearbox gets a C. C for adequate, C for average. Nearly all games invest in some kind of endgame. Many modern games have ruined their vanilla experience by making the endgame the real game. And I would argue this is mostly due to a fixation by online forums and player bases on the concept itself. But it has always remained since the inception of games an important and fundamental aspect to game design, and it is simple as the last few pieces remaining on the board and the plays that remain. Perhaps now I can get to the succinct part of this video. The honeymoon phase is over. The Borderlands formula remains the same tried, perhaps true, but tired formula. Our time sync is level alts, do chaos chambers, challenge the raid boss. Leveling alts has been ruined by the loot dice system. The loot dice system is fine in isolation, a one and done, but 260 dice per character just to maintain loot drops is insipid. This has to be account wide sooner rather than later. Further, leveling alts has never been that important nor statistically that acted upon by players. Sure, we can make mules. Sure, it's fine, it can be fun to get into a different build and playstyle, but when everything still boils down to DPS and the exact same 3 guns that every other Vault Hunter or Fate Maker runs, anything that can just output damage, it really doesn't matter. It's been this way since UVHM, and so it remains. Arguably, Borderlands 1 had the most diversity of playstyles in the end game because at least each Vault Hunter was very distinct in how they played. Whereas Destiny has set classes and set roles that those classes play, Borderlands has damage, where even the Division allowed for a range of different builds that were tailored to different weapons and different styles. Borderlands has damage. Leveling alts has never had the importance of, say, Destiny's drip feed weekly caps, which brings us to Chaos Chambers. Chaos Chambers are sufficient, as we fans were happy to see Gearbox put a specific endgame activity into the vanilla experience. Now, at Chaos level 20, with 100% of the game complete, Chaos Chambers reveal themselves as negligently thin. Firstly, these are not procedural. They are a by-the-numbers activity. They're about as droll as a Walmart in Indiana as opposed to in Ohio. There are only 5 or so chambers, and these were already present in the exact same form as both encounters and dungeons throughout the vanilla experience. So the player is already accustomed to the layouts before they even get to the Chaos Chambers. Now think about how Oblivion Gates weren't actually procedural, but set models which were then picked at random. So just like how Oblivion Gates became tediously repetitive and tiring, so do Chaos Chambers, only worse. There's less sets, so rather than 16 Oblivion Gates, there's 5. And on the whole, mob density is terrible. They've sacrificed spear carriers and enemy density for performance, and it shows. There's often 2 or 3 guys meandering around, hard to find, and then Mayhem 2.0 style, the player will still go down, I often do, to random inexplicable damage. Often it's an elemental pull that we probably created ourselves, but we have self-damage. On the other side of the coin with Chaos Chambers, Gearbox tried to implement some of the gameplay loop from roguelikes. They said that Risk of Rain 2 was a game that they would have made when they published it. I play a lot of roguelikes, from Atomic Crops to Hades to Neon Abyss. I've sunk enough time into the genre to separate the wheat from the chaff. And all the good roguelikes have one thing in common. They keep it interesting. Because roguelikes are built on repetition, runs seldom repeat. A new discovery, a new portal, a new path opens up, a new never-before-seen item reveals itself. The leaderboard has names attached to it. It's not just some opaque version we have here. And the rewards signify real growth and challenge, either again, new items or, more importantly, new characters, new bosses. This is absolutely not present in Chaos Chambers. Yes, it launched with a raid boss puzzle mechanic that can create a new portal, but it is the same dungeons in the same fashion over and over. It's the same curses. It's the same 5 arenas. It's the same 5-6 mobs. I'm already on autopilot. We're not even a month in. Killing the few mobs that are hiding around, automatically picking the same curses, and just going through the motions. I dislike being so critical, but here's what dawned on me last night. Sunday, again, the game's 100%ed. Looking for goals. Why was this a full price title with a $30 upsell to get on current gen tech? I don't want to hear about the pandemic. It's been 3 years. Doctors, nurses, essential workers of all kinds still got their shit done. And the suffering has not been isolated to just 1 or 2 people. It's been worldwide. So we got charged more than full price here for the same tech that Borderlands 3 ran on. It's larger than that. I don't regret my purchase. It's the primary thing with me is this isn't a core Borderlands title. It's a spin-off. It's a spin-off that is constantly tongue-in-cheek, self-aware. Side quests pick fun at game development for bugs to the devs themselves. The game pokes fun at crafting systems and fetch quests. And yeah, there's some woke writing in there, but I'm not even going to get into that. The entire side quest experience is either the same Leisure Suit Larry humor, now with a woke twist that we occasionally laugh at, but we mostly groan, and it's the same joke that they've been telling since 2012. This is a game, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a game that lives in the fourth wall. Why are we limited, then, to just Cyclops, ogres, snakes, mushrooms? We fight the same sparse littering of mobs over and over. Wonderlands utilized BL3's engine, tech, art asset. This was an old school game industry asset flip. There's 0 reasons Chaos Chambers can't actually be procedural, and therefore see remastered scenery from past games. There's 0 reason in a game all about digital construction and respawn that is then put into a self-aware, the game within the game, the last action hero style, doesn't incorporate a true Chaos Chamber that can see everything from Ned zombies to Jack's automaton legions to even the pre-sequel villain Zarpedon and her mercenaries. The alien fauna of Necrodefeo from Borderlands 3, but it doesn't. Meaning the biggest part of the time sink part, this core and hyped gameplay loop, all in, eggs in one basket, Chaos Chambers are the end game of end games. It's had a 2-week run. Now this is still fixable and savable, and the core of Wonderlands is still good. Wait for a sale and buy it. Definitely recommend it on sale. But we could fix this. And the featured run is the easiest to fix here, immediately. The rest, it's a little more endemic, it's baked in, and I really just don't see Gearbox caring enough to fix it and do it right. I'm a fan, but they have never gone all the way since Borderlands 2. We've been living the Underdome on repeat for a decade. The weekly run can be fixed right now if Gearbox adds a volatile and enchantable unique, a quest item, and it can be farmed once per day. As of right now, I have yet to see a volatile unique, and they can't be enchanted. Give us a reason to come back and do the featured run, especially right now when we know that we're less than 2 weeks out from the level cap going up. As of right now, as of writing this, April the 10th, it's just another Chaos run. There's nothing artisanal about it. The meaningful piece here, and when it comes to the endgame discussion, the meaningful piece of the puzzle is mutually exclusive to the time sink with Wonderlands. They are one and the same. They are the Chaos Chamber. The time sink is Chaos Chambers, and the meaningful part is supposed to be faster, more optimal runs. But when the time sink isn't worth the time, then the meaningful part goes with it. The ground loot issues of quantity over quality, a limited range of archetypes, and 3 guns that dominate all builds regardless of build are all present here again. Rocket launchers are woefully inadequate. The sniper class is non-existent. But again, these are problems that have persisted since the inception of Borderlands. They still can't seem to tune all classes of weapons to have a set role. They limit the rocket launcher ammo, but they don't want a gun that can one-shot things, so I guess the pistols are just rocket launchers. Yes, Wonderlands has a big problem. Wonderlands, like all Borderlands, it has an endgame problem. I've had more fun with Wonderlands at launch than any other Borderlands title since 2. I've sunk over 100 hours into it already, and generally looked forward to playing it each day. But with the big content creators getting less views than Borderlands 2 videos, and a post-content plan that's already 1/4 over, and the rest appear to be single rooms added to the Chaos Chambers, bringing us to a whopping 8 or 9 or so rooms. Normally, I'd argue in closing that despite Wonderlands and the franchise having a huge endgame gap, that it's okay that games once beat are complete and retired, and we're meant to move on to the next game. But the genre Borderlands still fights for is defined now by longevity and replayability. Most importantly, Gearbox is charging a premium here for what appears to be a stopgap solution. This wasn't a $40 title. Again, if you're gonna buy it, I'd recommend it, but wait for a sale. It's a fair price at $40. It's a game that can be seen and beaten by the average player in less than 20 hours. Wonderlands has an enjoyable campaign, but it charges $100 for it. It's $100 for a campaign that can be beat in less than 10 hours in a time of inflation and record high gas prices, yet gives a less than premium experience by the time, and yet lacks a robust second course in the post game to justify that premium price. There is the cycle of life. There's an important argument in games these days, especially in the age of live service, that games dying is important in order that new games get to come out, and that this drives the engine of both commerce and progress. Gearbox hasn't been a part of that progress since Battleborn ostensibly clipped their wings. So this just leaves the dying part.